Now let's start with today's story. I'm a 44-year-old man, and my soon-to-be ex-wife, Diana, 39, and I have been married for 11 years. We don't have kids. 2 years ago, after a routine blood test, I discovered I was at high risk for diabetes, gout, and hypertension. It was a wake-up call, and we both committed to a healthier lifestyle. Over time, I went from 117 kilograms to 85 kilograms, and Diana dropped from 83 kilograms to 65 kilograms. We felt great, and thankfully, I never developed any of those conditions. We started attending the gym almost daily in the afternoons, where a trainer named Scott worked. As Diana got into shape, I noticed more men paying attention to her, which made me proud. Diana has always had an attractive figure. She's fairly busty with great legs, and Scott was no exception in noticing. I had seen him checking out women's bodies before, and he often liked to show off how ripped he was. One day, while we were using the elliptical machines, Scott took off his shirt and started doing cable crossovers right in front of us. I turned to Diana, making a face, and said, "Can you believe this guy?" But instead of rolling her eyes or laughing, she was staring at him. She even wet her lips. When I looked at Scott, I swear he was grinning. I felt crushed. I had worked hard to get in shape, but I knew I wasn't as muscular or fit as he was. On the way home, I made a comment about Scott showing off. Diana dismissed it, saying, "Really? I didn't even notice." I reminded her that she had been staring, but she shrugged and claimed she must have been thinking about something else. I tried to let it go, but from then on, I noticed them talking more frequently at the gym. A few weeks later, Diana was doing squats on the Smith machine when Scott suddenly came over to help her. He placed his hands on her waist, and I immediately felt a surge of anger. After her first set, I stepped in and firmly told him, "I got it from here." He just smiled and said, "No problem, buddy," before walking off. Diana knew I was upset. She sighed and said, "Oh my God, Daniel." I told her we'd discuss it at home, and when we did, it turned into a full-blown argument. She called me jealous and immature. I told her I could see that Scott was trying to get into her pants, and to my shock, she admitted she knew, but insisted she would never cheat on me. I asked why she let him touch her, and she said she didn't want to be rude. After arguing for an hour, we finally agreed to switch gyms. But from that point on, Diana was resentful, constantly bringing up how I didn't trust her. A few months later, I got a great job opportunity that required me to work in the afternoons, meaning we could no longer go to the gym together. I started going in the mornings, while Diana continued going in the afternoons. That's when everything truly fell apart. Her resentment only grew, and our communication suffered. I sent her messages about my day, telling her I missed her, sending memes, anything to reconnect, but she barely responded. When she did, it was just yes, okay, same here, or haha. Worried about our marriage, I suggested couples therapy. She refused, saying I was the one who needed therapy because of my trust issues. Desperate to fix things, I agreed and started therapy in 2022. But despite my efforts, Diana's behavior didn't change. We hadn't been intimate for a while. Diana was never in the mood. I grew suspicious and checked her phone, but found nothing unusual. I even searched her car for a second phone, still nothing. Then, I decided to look at her map history, which only showed a routine of home, work, gym, and back home. When I tried to talk to her about it, she brushed it off, saying she just felt like she was in her 40s and that it would pass. With no concrete evidence of cheating, I kept working and worrying. We live in a condo, and the security guard, a cheerful man named Mr. Benson, often chats with me. One day, he mentioned having shoulder pain from moving a heavy sofa. I sympathized, and then he casually dropped a bombshell. "Maybe you can arrange a meeting with your massage therapist." Confused, I asked what he meant. He clarified, "The guy who came yesterday to massage Mrs. Diana." It took me a moment to process what I had just heard. My heart sank. I asked him if he had a video of the visitor, and seeing my reaction, he quickly pulled it up. And there he was, Scott. Of course, it was Scott. According to Mr. Benson, this wasn't his first visit. Determined to uncover the truth, I took the day off and borrowed a coworker's car. In the afternoon, I followed Diana. She parked at the mall where her gym was supposed to be, and there was Scott, waiting for her. They giggled, hugged, kissed, acting like a couple. I felt like my heart was being ripped out. They walked a few blocks into a residential area. I tried to follow and record them, but a security guard stopped me. Thinking fast, I casually asked, "What a lovely couple. Do you know them?" The guard replied that they seemed like newlyweds, but couldn't provide any other information. I called Diana, but she didn't answer. So, I went back to her car at the mall, wondering why this location hadn't shown up on her map history. I called her again, and I could hear her phone ringing inside the car. That's when I realized she hadn't been attending the gym at all. In fact, she hadn't been there in 8 months. That night was the last time I ever shared a bed with Diana. I returned the car, went home, and called my parents. Thankfully, my dad answered. I broke down, telling him everything. He comforted me and advised me to gather as much evidence as possible. He also promised to reach out to a trusted divorce lawyer. Later, Diana saw my missed calls and phoned me back. Keeping my composure, I simply said I was at home. She told me she was on her way back from the gym and jokingly added, "My butt is killing me." Yeah, I could guess why. When she arrived, she immediately noticed my red eyes and asked why I had been crying. Somehow, I managed to stay composed. I forced a smile and lied, telling her I was feeling unwell. Probably the flu, I said. That's why I left work early. Don't come near me. I might be contagious. I'll get tested tomorrow and sleep in the spare room tonight. She agreed without question. That night, I lay awake, silently crying. Around midnight, I heard her giggling, most likely texting Scott. Yet, no matter how much I searched her phone, there was no evidence of another man. Then it hit me. How had I not seen it before? Her affair partner was likely saved under the name of one of her female coworkers. The next morning, while Diana was in the shower, I took her phone, created a session on my laptop, and carefully placed her phone back where it was. We both had access to each other's phones, so I set up a session on my laptop while her phone was nearby and connected to the same Wi-Fi. Then I saw it. A conversation under a female contact's name, with a profile picture of a dumbbell. Most of the messages had been deleted, but I noticed some suspicious phrases. They used coded language in case I ever checked her phone. "Can you deliver the papers to my desk?" But I knew she didn't have a desk at work. "Going to the meeting. Where are you?" "On top of them. Boss is in his office. He's clueless." It was clever. I realized I was boss in this exchange, since I knew for a fact her actual boss was a woman. When Diana got out of the shower, she noticed my expression. "You look worse. Why don't you stay with your parents?" she suggested. I pretended to consider it, knowing I needed more evidence. After she left for work, I contacted my dad, who gave me the name of a divorce lawyer. When I explained everything, the lawyer told me that screenshots from my laptop wouldn't hold up as proof, since they didn't contain her lover's real name. And even if I took pictures of her and Scott together at the mall, she could easily claim they were just friends. I couldn't trespass in the residential area either. It could cause legal trouble for me instead. I needed a better plan. I considered installing hidden cameras, but since Scott rarely came to our condo, it wasn't worth the risk of Diana discovering them. Instead, I decided to remove myself from the equation. I texted Diana, telling her I had tested positive for the flu and would be staying at my parents' place for help. She liked the idea and told me she'd miss me, but almost immediately after, she messaged boss will be out of the office. "Want to come to my desk?" She had taken the bait. That night, when I got home to pack, Diana had already prepared a suitcase for me. She was eager to get rid of me. I told her I'd take my laptop, then checked her messages one last time. She had sent that message to her lover right after I told her I was leaving. We didn't have dinner together. No kisses, no hugs. As I walked out, I noticed her glancing at her watch, twice. She even walked me to my car, which was strange. Then it hit me. Scott was already inside the building. Maybe even in her car. It would be too obvious if her massage therapist showed up this late. After leaving, I met up with my dad and brother, who were watching the building, waiting for Scott to appear. But he never did. That's when I realized. Diana walked me out to make sure I was gone before sneaking him in. I turned the car around and rushed back. Entering quietly, I heard music coming from the bedroom, along with unmistakable moans. Near the door, I spotted a sofa with their clothes strewn across it. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Then, I opened the bedroom door. There she was, my wife of 11 years, with Scott behind her. I caught the shock on their faces as Diana screamed, scrambling for the blanket. Scott immediately went into alpha male mode, marching towards me completely naked. He had the audacity to sneer, "Why don't you go for a walk, buddy?" I didn't hesitate. I hit him in the throat with an open palm, the same move I had seen in Ransom with Mel Gibson. He crumpled, coughing and gasping for air, dropping to his knees. "Get out of my house," I shouted, throwing his clothes at him and kicking him out the door. My dad, brother, and the condo security guard, Mr. Benson, arrived just in time to see me slam the door shut. Inside, Diana was still on the bed, trembling, clutching the blanket around her. I stared at her. "I have never hurt you, and I never will. Get dressed. I'll be waiting in the living room." While she got dressed, I sent the video to my lawyer. His response came quickly. "I'm sorry for you, but jackpot." A few minutes later, Diana walked in. She couldn't meet my eyes. I started recording our conversation. "Why?" I asked. "Was I such a terrible husband to you?" She started crying, but didn't answer. "Do you love him?" She shook her head, but said nothing. Frustrated, I stood up and slammed my hand on the table. "Say something, Diana." "Damn it." Her eyes widened, and she started trembling like a frightened puppy. I had never yelled at her before. Taking a deep breath, I sat down and spoke calmly. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. Get yourself a lawyer. Finally, she spoke. We can fix this. Fix what? I asked. Our marriage ended the moment Scott entered the picture. You chose him over me. It was a mistake, she whispered. No, Diana. It was a choice. You made a decision, and these are the consequences. What did you think would happen when I found out? Silence. Go to your sisters and tell her the truth, I said. Or I will show her the video myself. She went to the bedroom and started packing. I followed and watched. For the past 2 days, I had been trying to convince myself that my wife was already gone, that the woman I shared my home with was not the same person I had loved. But watching her carefully fold her clothes, her graceful movements, all those little things I used to adore about her, it hit me hard. I went to the spare room and broke down, ugly crying. I heard the front door close. Before she left, she had picked up her clothes from the sofa and even made the bed where I had caught them together. I collapsed to the floor. Much later, I called my dad. He told me Scott had considered pressing charges, but Mr. Benson reminded him that he hadn't signed in, meaning he was trespassing and the condo association could sue him. Scott dropped it and left. Meanwhile, my nosy brother had pressed his ear against my door, and my dad dragged him away by the ear and shoved him into the car. I was exhausted. I hadn't slept properly the night before, and I passed out in the spare room. The next morning, my phone was flooded with messages from Diana. Apologies, please for a second chance. I just blocked her. Later, my sister-in-law called. Apparently, Diana hadn't told her what really happened, just that we were fighting. Maybe that's for the best. My father-in-law isn't alive to see this, and my mother-in-law has severe dementia. It's been a week since everything happened. Next week, Diana is going to be served. On Sunday, I visited my parents. My mom cried with me. She really loved Diana. My dad had a talk with me about my finances, properties, and other matters. When I got home, Mr. Benson informed me that both Diana and Scott had shown up, seemingly ready to go public with their relationship now that everything was out in the open. Strangely, they arrived at different times. Diana came in the morning. She parked her car and, noticing mine wasn't there, tried to enter the house, only to realize her key no longer worked. She then asked Mr. Benson if he knew where I was, but he told her he didn't. Instead, he handed her a card from my attorney. She took it and left. Scott showed up in the afternoon. The first thing he did was ask to see Diana. Mr. Benson made a point of emphasizing, Mrs. Diana doesn't live here anymore. Then Scott asked about me, but Mr. Benson simply replied, Mr. Smith is away. I have no idea when he'll return. Scott left without saying much. I guess they aren't in contact yet. A part of me wanted to ask about Diana, whether she looked okay, if she seemed sad, if she even asked about me. But then I remembered D-Day and simply thanked Mr. Benson before saying goodnight. I didn't want to, but something I learned from many of you is to hit the gym hard. So, I found a new gym near my job and had a solid workout session. I felt good afterward. Back home, I didn't cry this time. Instead, I started removing all of Diana's pictures from the house. Next day, I met with my lawyer to go over my assets. Thankfully, my dad had insisted on a prenup before we got married, meaning Diana can't touch anything I owned before our marriage, including my house. The rest of our shared assets will be split 50-50. However, I have the option to seek compensation for her adultery. Rather than fight for material things, I decided to take alimony instead. Everything in the house reminds me of her, and I just want to move on. When I left my lawyer's office, I overheard whispers from 2 neighbors. They quickly acted as if they hadn't seen me, then greeted me as they passed. I knew this was coming. Later, I hit the gym again. I received a flood of messages on Facebook from people asking me to reach out to Diana. I ignored them all, closed my account. I haven't entered my bedroom since D-Day. I've been sleeping in the spare room. I realized I don't want to live here anymore. Before heading to the gym, I contacted a real estate agent about selling or renting my house. Since Diana had been trying to reach me, I spent the whole day out. Sure enough, she showed up again, then went to my parents and brother. They just texted me, Diana came. I simply replied, thanks. I don't want to talk about her yet. I spent the day with my parents. We took a trip to a town 2 hours away and had a great time. I don't know if Diana came by again, and I don't care. My dad advised me against selling my house and suggested renting it out instead. I agreed. When I got home, Mr. Benson told me Scott had come by again, this time alone. He asked for me, but Mr. Benson repeated that I wasn't there. Scott left without another word. Next day, I decided to visit my old gym. I wasn't sure if I'd run into Scott. He used to work afternoon shifts, but considering how he spent his afternoons, I figured he might have changed his schedule. He wasn't there. I asked to speak with Ethan, the gym owner. While waiting, I ran into an old janitor I used to chat with. He smiled and told me to say hi to Miss Diana. I guess my new normal includes telling people that we're no longer together. Ethan finally met with me. and I got straight to the point. After explaining everything, I showed him the video. He sat in silence, deep in thought. Then he said something that made me brace myself. "You're not going to like this." Ethan called the receptionist and asked for Elliot, another coach, and Scott's friend. "Fasten your seatbelts." According to Elliot, Scott is head over heels for Diana. Ethan confirmed this, adding that Scott had received numerous complaints from female gym members in the past. But over the last few months, he completely changed. No complaints, no inappropriate behavior, just pure professionalism. Then Elliot dropped the bombshell. Scott isn't just serious about Diana. He's trying to trap her into marriage by getting her pregnant. As I processed this information, I felt something building in my chest. It climbed up my throat until it finally burst out. I laughed. Not just any laugh, but a full-blown, Joker-style, almost manic laugh. I even teared up a little. Ethan and Elliot looked completely bewildered. Meanwhile, I was thinking, "Oh, sweet karma. Thank you." Once I calmed down, though still grinning, Elliot hesitantly asked what was so funny. Ethan answered for me. "This is Scott's girlfriend's husband." Elliot's eyes widened in shock. "Oh man, this is bad. This is really messed up." He quickly walked away, probably needing a moment to process everything. After that, we discussed Scott's termination. Ethan explained that he would need to report the situation to the coaching association, not its real name. Since Diana had been a member of the gym, Scott's actions could have legal repercussions for the business. I needed to provide a legal document stating that Scott was the reason for my divorce, along with the case number and the video evidence. My attorney would handle the rest by submitting it to the association's legal team. Scott would lose his certification from this association, meaning he couldn't work as a coach for a while. He could try applying to a different association, but the process would take months. When I asked if he could appeal, Ethan said technically, yes, but it would be a waste of time. The association had a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of behavior, and Scott didn't have the money for legal representation anyway. That's when something clicked in my mind. I remembered the residential area where I had seen Scott enter with Diana and thought, wait a second. I assumed he was wealthy. I pulled up the location on my phone and showed Ethan. He leaned in, his expression darkening. "You followed them there?" "Yeah," I admitted. "The day before D-Day." Ethan's face hardened with anger. "That's my late father's house." It turns out, after his father passed away, Ethan inherited the property. He used it to store old or broken gym equipment. Occasionally, he let Scott drop things off there, but Scott was not supposed to be living there. Clearly, he had made himself at home. Ethan was furious. He was going to investigate further, and with all the cameras on the property, it wouldn't take long to confirm if Scott was staying there illegally. As I was leaving the gym, I heard someone call out, "Mr. Smith, wait." It was Elliot. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "I'm really sorry about all this." Scott never told me who his girlfriend was, just that he met her at the mall. I thanked him and turned to leave, but he quickly added, "How are you handling all this?" Something felt off. I stared at him for a moment, and then it hit me. "You called Scott, didn't you?" I said slowly. "He's on his way here right now. You were just stalling me." Elliot's guilty expression told me everything I needed to know. "Mr. Smith, please talk to him. He's desperate. He was crying yesterday because his girlfriend, I mean your wife, isn't returning his calls." I scoffed. "Why should I care if he's rotting in hell?" Elliot reassured me. "I'll be here with you, so don't worry." I laughed. "Scared? Of that weakling?" Then I smirked. "Did he not tell you? I kicked him out of my house naked." Elliot looked skeptical. "Fine," I said. "Let's see what he wants." Since we were standing near security cameras, I sat at a table in the reception area. I doubted Scott was stupid enough to try anything, but who knew? More than anything, I was curious. About 10 minutes later, Scott came running in and spotted me. He extended his hand. I crossed my arms and left him hanging. "What the hell do you want?" I asked, locking eyes with him. He sat down. "Listen, buddy. Stop right there," I cut him off. "We are not buddies. Mr. Benson, the janitor? He's my buddy. You? You're nothing." Scott looked sheepish. "Okay, my bad. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you, and I really care about Diana." I chuckled coldly. That's 3 lies in a single sentence. "You're not sorry. You didn't mean to destroy my life. And you only care about yourself." His expression shifted from apologetic to annoyed. "Okay, whatever, man. Just tell me where Diana is." "The last time I saw her." I'm used. "That would be when I kicked her out of my house, right after I kicked you out naked." I knew Elliot was listening. Scott's face turned beet red. "That was a cheap shot. I should sue you." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, last I checked, you entered my home illegally. And unless you were squatting my wife, I have video proof of you sneaking out without signing in." Scott's expression flickered again. Okay, I'm sorry. Just tell me what you want from me." At that moment, Ethan rushed in, probably after seeing Scott on the cameras. "Everything okay here?" he asked. "All good, Ethan." I smirked. I was just telling this piece of shit exactly what I want. I stood up and leaned in close to Scott's face. What I want is for you to get exactly what's coming to you. What you deserve. I want the law to do its job. I want to crush your dreams, just like you crush mine. You want kids? I sneered. Guess what? You won't. And you never will. Scott's face twisted. What's that supposed to mean? Ethan didn't let him finish. Scott, come with me. We need to talk in my office. Elliot grabbed Scott's arm and muttered, Dude, you're in deep shit. And with that, I finally left. I made up my mind. I'm divorcing Diana. What if she's truly remorseful? What if we're that golden couple who survives infidelity? But here's the truth. I will never trust her again. It's unbearable knowing she's at home alone, doing God knows what while I'm at work. The thought tortures me. Depression is dangerous in my case because it could lead me back to unhealthy habits, like gaining weight again. I need to stay committed to the gym and keep a close eye on my diet. I finally applied for a promotion at work, something I could have done long ago, but it requires frequent travel. I feel that being away will help me heal. I've also been looking for a new place and found a small apartment that's perfect for me. I've already paid 3 months rent in advance and will be moving in as soon as possible. Since D-Day, I haven't seen Diana or Scott. The last time I saw Scott was that Monday, and I'm fairly certain he was fired. On a brighter note, I had an unexpected encounter with one of my neighbors, an older lady in her 50s. We met in the condo elevator, and she mentioned that she hadn't seen Diana around lately. When I told her we were separating, she casually invited me to a dinner she's hosting, mentioning that her single niece would be visiting for a few days. It caught me off guard. It looks like I might be back on the market sooner than I expected. As for the legal side of things, my attorney confirmed that Diana was supposed to be served last Friday, but due to a national holiday, it was postponed until Sunday morning at her parents' house. Then, on Monday, I found a letter slipped under my door, 3 full pages, front and back, from Diana. In the letter, she explained how she ended up cheating. And here enters the second villain of the story, a co-worker I'll call Isabel. I've met her a few times at Diana's work events, like Christmas and anniversary celebrations. She's extremely thin, almost unhealthily so, and always wears heavy makeup. She also seems to believe that every man wants to sleep with her. There was one time she even accused me of staring at her. The truth? I was looking, but only because I could see her ribs, and I was genuinely concerned about how underweight she looked. According to Diana's letter, after she lost weight, Isabel suddenly wanted to be best friends with her. She convinced Diana that they were the 2 hottest women at work and started planting toxic ideas in her head. She told Diana that she deserved a better man, that she was entitled to someone new, and that I was a pathetic husband who would try to control her now that she was attractive. When the incident with the Smith machine happened, Isabel used it as fuel. See, didn't I tell you? He doesn't want to be your husband. He wants to own you. And Diana believed her. Because of this manipulation, she resented me for months. During that time, Diana and I started going to the gym at different times. One day, she randomly ran into Scott at the mall. He approached her, and they struck up a conversation. She admitted in her letter that she had a crush on a guy like him before she met me, something she had never told me before. They grabbed a bite to eat and flirted. Then Diana showed Isabel a picture of Scott from Facebook. That was all it took. You'd be an idiot not to go for it, Isabel told her. Your pathetic husband doesn't even compare to that Greek god. Diana had the opportunity. She wanted to take it. So she did. Scott took her to his house, which happened to be near the mall where they met. She didn't realize it was actually Ethan's father's house. That was 9 months ago. Isabel is a professional cheater. She gave Diana step-by-step instructions on how to cover her tracks, codes to hide Scott's contact information, tricks to erase location history, and ways to make sure I wouldn't catch on. She even told Diana that changing her phone password was too obvious because it would make me immediately suspicious. At some point, Diana noticed that Scott hated me. Whenever she talked about me, he would get angry. His way of punishing her? Leaving hickeys on her body. Now I remember, around that time, Diana suddenly started wearing pajamas to bed, saying it was because she was cold. Meanwhile, Isabel kept feeding her poison, saying she deserved this romance, and that I deserved to be cheated on because I was a beta. For months, Diana admitted, she loved the danger and the thrill of being with Scott. The excitement. The sex. But at the same time, she hated watching me struggle, watching me try to be a better husband, knowing that she was the reason for my pain. Ignoring me was easier. So, she kept choosing pleasure. And then D-Day happened. She never saw it coming. She thought I was clueless. I'm going to write this part exactly as she wrote it. I was in shock and instinctively covered myself with a blanket. When I finally reacted, I saw you pushing and kicking Scott out of the room and the house. When I heard you close the door and come back, I didn't know what to say. I had never seen you that angry before. Then you said, I have never hurt you, nor will I. That's true. Throughout the years we've been together, you have never once hurt me, not even when we found out that I was the reason we couldn't have children. Later, she heard me crying in the spare room. She wanted to comfort me, but how could she? At the front door, we have a mirror to check ourselves before leaving. When she looked at her reflection, she couldn't stand what she saw. As soon as she got into her car, she broke down and asked herself, "What have I done?" That night, Scott called her, but she blocked him. She arrived at her sister's house around midnight, about 2 hours after everything unfolded. Her sister, being older and strong-willed, intimidated her, so she hesitated to explain what had happened. The next day, she confided in Isabel, who told her she should be happy to be rid of me. I'm copying this part of the conversation exactly as she wrote it. Isabel said, "Babe, you're free. You can sleep with Scott or any guy you want." Diana responded, "And then?" "Isabel, I don't know what you mean." "Diana, what happens when I get tired of sleeping around?" "Isabel, then you can decide who you want to be serious with." Diana, "And then?" "Isabel, I don't know, get married, I guess." Diana, "But I already had a marriage." Isabel, "Yeah, but it was with Daniel. He's a loser. Scott is 100 times better than him." Diana, "No, that's not true. He gave me a good life." Isabel, "Don't settle for so little. You can do better." This led to a huge argument at work, right in front of their co-workers. Diana doesn't remember all the details, but there was a lot of yelling and swearing. Isabel kept insisting that any guy hotter than me was automatically better than me. I still don't understand what she has against me. But at that moment, Diana finally realized the extent of what she had destroyed. She was inconsolable, and her boss sent her home early. The next day, Diana was babysitting her sister's twins. Later, her sister took her out under the pretense of running errands, but it was really an intervention. They parked at a nearby park, where her sister demanded to know what was going through her head when she decided to cheat. Diana could only cry and say, "I don't know." Her sister admitted that she had been envious of our marriage, 11 years together without any major fights, always appearing happy. She never thought her little sister could do something like this. Diana had been there for her when her ex-husband left her for another woman, and now she had become the betrayer. Diana begged her not to kick her out, and while her sister allowed her to stay, she made it clear that she was deeply disappointed and would support me if I ever needed help. Diana accepted this. The following Sunday, Diana came by to apologize, but I wasn't home. When she later received my attorney's card, she called to confirm, and upon hearing that I had officially hired him, she realized that I was truly going through with the divorce. That's when she wrote a confession and sent it to everyone. We both knew. The next week, I started receiving messages and calls, though I ignored them. Now that I've read some of them, they match what Diana said. Most were from people offering support, though one of her cousins suggested I should reconsider because it takes guts to confess. Diana tried to distract herself with work, but by then, everyone knew she had cheated. In my country, unfaithful women are seen as easy, so female co-workers avoided her, especially Isabel, while male co-workers became annoyingly friendly. She requested a transfer, but since that would take months, she quit her job the following Friday. Luckily, she has significant savings. We always kept our finances separate, and since I was the primary earner, I covered most of our expenses. That Saturday, she went looking for me, hoping to beg me to take her back. When she saw I wasn't home, she went to my parents' house. My father refused to speak to her, but my mother was more sympathetic, though she made it clear that I was deeply hurt and had asked them not to discuss her anymore. Diana understood. Next, she went to my brother's house. He simply told her, "Daniel isn't here, and frankly, I don't want to talk to you." Then he shut the door in her face. She returned to her new home, completely devastated. Last week, she spent time reflecting on her actions and fell into a deep depression, realizing the extent of the damage she caused to our marriage, to both our families, and to her own life. And all for what? Meaningless pleasure from a man who, in her own words, believes vaccines are just a scam by Big Pharma and takes astrology seriously. Scott even has a giant Taurus tattoo on his arm. She suggested therapy for herself, and honestly, I don't blame her. If my own brother had done something like this, I'd be just as disappointed but would still try to help him understand his mistakes. Diana eventually started therapy, and her therapist advised her to write this letter as a way to take full responsibility. She insists that everything written in it is true and swears on her life that if I take her back, she would be the most loyal, honest, and grateful wife in history. She promises total transparency, full access to her social media, which I already had, answering my calls no matter what, and never having friends I don't approve of. There were also details about family and mutual friends, but they require too much context to include here. Finally, she begs to meet me in person so she can apologize properly. In her words, Sorry doesn't even begin to describe what I'm feeling right now. So what do I think of this letter? The things I can verify are that she hasn't contacted Scott since the day he was fired, and that she did confess to family and friends. The rest? Likely a mix of truth and self-serving revision. For example, she conveniently leaves out the times she called me jealous and immature. Diana never mentioned that she let Scott be with her unprotected, nor that she allowed him to finish inside. She says she's willing to give me all her passwords now, but that doesn't erase the fact that she lied to my face and gaslighted me for 9 months. According to her, she was exceptionally good at it, but I don't want to be her jailer. As I've said before, I will never trust her again. Whenever I see her face, I'll also see Scott's nape in front of her. I refuse to be her second option or a doormat. A few days later, I had a severe anxiety attack from all the stress I had bottled up. My therapist later told me that my life had undergone such a drastic shift that my mind hadn't had time to adjust. I had never experienced anything like it before, and in the moment, I genuinely thought I was having a stroke. My heart raced, I was drenched in sweat, and panic clouded my judgment. My coworkers called emergency services, and an ambulance took me to the hospital. If I hadn't been so terrified, I might have actually enjoyed the ride. The paramedic kept reassuring me, repeating, "Sir, you're having a panic attack. Everything is going to be fine." But I couldn't focus on his words. My only thought was, I'm going to die. At the hospital, they sedated me, and I finally started to feel calmer, though drowsy. The doctor asked me basic questions, my name, age, the date, and I was able to answer correctly before I passed out. When I woke up, guess who was sitting beside me? Diana. I had forgotten to remove her name and number from my emergency contact list. Still groggy from the medication, I saw her sitting there, reading a book. Reflexively, I smiled and said, "Diana?" The moment she heard me, she jumped up from her seat, tears in her eyes. "Hello, my love. You really scared us," she said. That's when everything came rushing back to me. My smile faded. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to sit up, but my body felt heavy and uncoordinated. She gently shushed me. "Take it easy. No sudden movements. I'll get the doctor." Then she kissed my forehead and left. I wanted to avoid the kiss, but my reflexes were still too sluggish. And the worst part? That kiss felt so familiar. Yet deep down, I knew it had been over a year since she had kissed me with any real love. As I lay there, I finally noticed my surroundings. I was in a shared hospital room with 6 other patients, separated by privacy curtains. I also realized I wasn't wearing my own clothes, just a hospital gown. A few minutes later, Diana returned with the doctor. Apparently, I had been unconscious for 26 hours. The doctor explained everything about my anxiety attack and asked if I had stopped taking any medications. Almost in unison, Diana and I responded, "He doesn't take any meds." I hated how well she still knew me. The doctor confirmed that my episode was triggered by severe stress and a sudden life change, or both. I glanced at Diana, and she quickly looked away. He advised me to take some time off and strongly recommended seeing a psychiatrist, as my current therapist, a thanatologist, couldn't prescribe medication. Then he mentioned something I hadn't realized until that moment. "You must be starving." As soon as he said it, my stomach grumbled loudly. I hadn't eaten anything in over 26 hours. Diana didn't seem eager to leave, despite visiting hours coming to an end soon. The atmosphere between us felt awkward, and to fill the silence, I asked, "You said, you scared us. Who is US?" She smiled, as if she had been waiting for me to break the silence. "Your parents and I were here in the morning. Did they leave?" "Yes. They're expecting my call. I'll talk to them tomorrow. You can leave." She ignored that and instead said, "Your dinner's almost here." A few minutes later, a nurse arrived with a food tray. She instructed Diana to adjust my bed so I could sit up to eat. Diana gave me an amused look, as if enjoying my discomfort. The nurse then said something that caught me off guard. "This woman has taken care of you all day. She even sponge-bathed you and shaved you." I hadn't even noticed until she mentioned it. Still, I was firm. "We're getting divorced," I told her. The nurse didn't care. "That's not my problem," she snapped. "You should be thanking her. She's been here the whole time, helping you. And you're being incredibly ungrateful." With that, she walked away, leaving me alone with Diana once again. I refused Diana's help and tried to eat on my own, despite my clumsy movements. I was making a mess with the soup, and she kept begging me to let her assist. Eventually, feeling like a stubborn child throwing a tantrum, I relented and let her feed me. I had never felt so vulnerable before. She was gentle, almost maternal, as she helped me. Without makeup, I could see more fine lines on her face, crow's feet forming at the corners of her eyes. After finishing my meal, I felt a little better. Diana took the tray out of the room, still in a good mood. While she was gone, I noticed a middle-aged man in a nearby bed discreetly checking her out as she walked past. I wasn't surprised. Diana has always been beautiful. She returned a few moments later, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being indebted to her. When she sat back down, I forced myself to say, "Thanks for being here." She met my eyes and smiled. "Anytime." She reached out to brush my hair from my forehead, and though I wanted to pull away, I couldn't. Her expression softened, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. When she tried to take my hand, I withdrew. "Can we talk?" "Please," she asked quietly. I stayed silent. The only reason I could bring myself to be cordial was because of the twins, my godchildren. Diana and I had been a big part of their lives, helping care for them when Clara's ex left. I loved those two kids like they were my own. I remember telling Diana that babysitting them was good practice for when we had children of our own. That will never happen now. When Clara asked us to be their godparents, I was deeply moved. They are the closest thing I've ever had to a son and daughter, and I've missed them terribly. I haven't seen them since a week before D-Day, and avoiding Diana meant avoiding them, too. So, for their sake, I told her, "Okay, let's talk at the condo. I'll contact you soon." She offered to drive me home after my discharge, but I refused. "I'll ask my parents to pick me up," I told her. "I'll see you at the condo." I needed to talk to my parents first. Noticing me looking around for my clothes, she retrieved my phone from the cabinet beside my bed. I looked at her suspiciously, and she made that guilty face, the one I knew all too well. I didn't need to ask. I was sure she had snooped. She admitted it with her expression alone. I didn't care. I had nothing to hide. I texted my parents, and they called me almost immediately. While I was on the phone, the same no-nonsense nurse from earlier reminded Diana that visiting hours were over. She wanted to say goodbye, but I ignored her. As she turned to leave, she whispered, "I know you keep your word. I'll wait for you to contact me. I love you." She kissed my hair and walked away. And I do keep my word. My father always told me that a man is only as good as his word. Later, when I spoke to my parents, I asked them what had happened after I passed out. They told me that one of my coworkers had arrived at the hospital to provide my medical information. That's when the staff checked my emergency contact and called Diana. Clara also reached out to my parents after the hospital informed her. When Diana arrived, she met my coworker, who then left. She waited for the doctor, and when my parents arrived, my father remained cordial and asked if she had any updates. Eventually, a nurse called out, "Relatives of patient Daniel." They followed her to the doctor, who confirmed that I was physically healthy. My anxiety attack had been psychological, triggered by extreme stress and sudden life changes. Since Diana was my emergency contact, the doctor allowed her to see me first. She promised my parents she would call them afterward. When she returned, she seemed surprised to find them still waiting. She then drove them home, telling them that she had helped the nurses undress me and change me into a hospital gown. They didn't discuss the divorce. My parents thanked her for the ride, and they all agreed to visit in the morning while she would return in the afternoon. Later, I also called Clara to thank her for reaching out to my parents. Fortunately, my godchildren were still awake, so I got the chance to talk to them. They were busy drawing get-well-soon cards for me, which touched my heart. I promised to visit them the following weekend. The next day, Thursday, I was discharged from the hospital, and my parents took me to my new home. About a week before my panic attack, I had started moving into my own place. I took only my personal belongings, leaving everything else in the condo, which I planned to rent out as a fully furnished unit. Given its location near 3 universities, I know students would be eager to secure a place like mine. I had already purchased the essentials, basic furniture, a refrigerator, a stove, since I'll need to learn how to cook for myself now, a bed, a table with chairs, a desk, and cleaning supplies. For the first time, I felt a sense of excitement. I could finally call this little apartment my own. As a token of appreciation, I bought a warm jacket for Mr. Benson, thanked him for his help, and assured him that I'd visit from time to time. I chose not to attend my neighbor's dinner. I'm not ready for dating yet. I still have a lot of healing to do, and more therapy wouldn't hurt either. At my new home, I took time to reflect on my goals. After meeting with Diana, I realized that I needed closure. I wanted to understand her actions, make it clear that reconciliation was not an option, and part ways amicably. The divorce will go through, and I will move forward. However, I don't want to lose my in-laws, my sweet, incoherent mother-in-law, my strong and stubborn sister-in-law, and most importantly, my godchildren, whom I adore. I don't want to miss their birthdays or their future milestones. At the very least, I need to remain cordial with Diana, especially at work. My boss granted me 5 days off, starting next week, but I didn't want to just sit around. So, I went to the beach. It felt good to step away from everything for a while and just breathe. During this time of reflection, I came to a difficult realization. I still love my wife, but not the version of her that betrayed me. I miss the woman who got excited about pizza Fridays, the one who supported my dreams and hopes, the one who held me when life got rough. But that woman is gone. The person who betrayed me? That's not my wife. I recently attended my first session with a psychiatrist. He diagnosed me with symptoms of depression stemming from anxiety and insecurity. As a result, he prescribed a mild antidepressant to take daily until my next session. At the time, I didn't notice much of a change. In an effort to channel my energy into something positive, I also started taking kickboxing lessons. My coach mentioned that I have good reflexes, but I still have a long way to go. Meanwhile, Diana came by to collect all of her belongings from the condo. She also took our marriage along with her, in the grand scheme of things. A friend of my brother gave me an interesting idea. I decided to sacrifice the living room and convert it into an additional bedroom, making the dining and kitchen area a shared common space. This way, the condo would have 3 bedrooms, making it more appealing for renters. I hired someone to take care of the renovations. Soon after, my attorney informed me that Diana had hired her own lawyer, and they had requested a meeting. I asked what I needed to do, and he advised me to simply follow his lead, agreeing unless an unreasonable request came up, in which case we would call for a break to discuss it. The meeting took place the following week at Diana's attorney's office. Diana looked stunning but remained mostly silent, occasionally stealing glances at me. After introductions, her attorney, a man in his 50s, stated that since I had already refused to pay alimony, they would not bring up Diana's adultery, provided it was noted for the record. My attorney agreed on that condition. The division of assets went by quickly since I didn't want anything, and Diana had already taken what mattered to her. Then, her attorney proposed 5 sessions of marriage counseling, adding that if I attended with an open mind and honesty, Diana would guarantee a smooth divorce. My attorney negotiated it down to 3 sessions. During a break, I expressed my frustration with the request, but my attorney discreetly signaled for me to play along. When I glanced at Diana, she was making that familiar pleading expression, the one she used when she really wanted something. I sighed internally and let my face convey, "Fine, you win." She smiled in response. It was the same old dynamic, our unspoken language. Later, I asked my attorney if counseling was really necessary. He explained that it was a strategic move. The judge assigned to our case might side with Diana if she appeared to be making an effort while I refused. On the other hand, they might side with me and disregard it. It was a gamble, but one worth taking. By mid-October, we attended our first session. The counselor, Emily, sat between us on a large sofa. After reviewing our history and the key points of the divorce, she asked us both about our expectations. I stated that I wanted an amicable separation but was firm in my decision to divorce. Diana, on the other hand, said she wanted to reconcile and insisted that she had never stopped loving me. I was about to argue, but Emily gently reminded me to let Diana speak uninterrupted. Then, Emily asked me how I felt about Diana's goal. I responded that I didn't believe reconciliation was possible because I had lost trust in her and suspected she had real feelings for her affair partner. Diana opened her mouth to protest, but Emily stopped her from interrupting. Emily then asked me why I believed Diana had feelings for the other man. I pointed to her behavior, the gaslighting, the way she giggled the day before D-Day, and how eager she was to get rid of me when the truth came out. When it was Diana's turn to speak, she swore she never loved him. She claimed she never said "I love you" to him because she didn't feel that way. According to her, their conversations were minimal, even though he constantly texted her. She insisted she didn't even know basic details about him, like his birthday. Instead, she admitted she had been drawn to the secrecy, the thrill, and the way others looked at her. To prove she had no ongoing contact with him, Diana offered to show me her phone. I reminded her that she used to delete messages, making it pointless. Emily mentioned that deleted messages could be recovered with certain apps. At that moment, Diana fell silent, her expression shifting as if her mind was racing. Emily and I exchanged glances before I asked, "Are you still in contact with him?" Diana almost shouted, "No, I swear." But she hesitated when I asked for her phone. Finally, she handed it over, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please remember, the Diana who texted him isn't the same Diana anymore." I frowned. "What does that mean?" I beg you, don't make me say it," she pleaded. I turned to Emily, who explained that Diana might have been in what some call a fog, a mental state where a person is so absorbed in the excitement of an affair that they fail to see the consequences of their actions clearly. The severity varies from person to person, but it often clouds their judgment. Then, Diana looked at me and said, "Daniel, I am deeply sorry for everything I texted him. I don't know what I was thinking. I was so incredibly disrespectful to you." At that moment, I wasn't sure I even wanted to know what she had said. If she had spoken about me the way he had, it would be a devastating blow. She had known my deepest fears, my insecurities. The thought of her using them against me was unbearable. Emily asked me what it would take for me to consider reconciliation. I told her there were two major obstacles I couldn't see myself overcoming. 1. Diana had lied to me for so long that I no longer trusted her. 2. I could never be intimate with her again, not after she had given her body to another man. Diana started crying, insisting that her affair was purely physical, like using a toy. She swore that bird brain wasn't impressive at all. I reminded her that my main issue was trust, but she seemed almost desperate. Daniel, I never made love to him. You are the only one, she pleaded. I felt a surge of anger and snapped. Then why didn't you touch me for months? The counselor, Emily, turned to Diana and asked her to explain why she had cheated. Diana opened up about her past, describing how she was bullied and ignored as a chubby teenager. Even in university, she struggled to fit in. Her friends often left her out, and if it weren't for her high grades, they would have ignored her completely. Then she met me, and it felt like finding her twin soul. When she lost weight, her body changed in ways that drew attention. At first, the way men stared at her was frightening, but her friends assured her she was beautiful and encouraged her to be confident. The attention fed her ego, and when Bird Brain also started staring at her, she admitted that it felt good. You don't know what it's like to be ugly, she said. I countered, I do. I've lost count of how many times I've been friend-zoned or ignored at work. My female colleagues even made a list of attractive men in the office, and I wasn't on it. I didn't care because I thought I had someone who truly loved me. But that person traded me for someone better looking. Diana burst into tears again. I went on, explaining that I belong to an ethnicity that is often bullied in my country, seen as poor and unattractive. I had cruel nicknames growing up, and my therapist told me that's likely why I gained weight, as a form of emotional armor. Emily then asked me if I could see that Diana was remorseful. I admitted that I could tell she was, but only because she got caught, not because she regretted cheating. Diana, still crying, said she knew she had messed up. That's why she confessed to everyone we knew. Emily seemed particularly interested in that detail and asked why Diana had chosen to tell people who hadn't even known about our problems. Diana admitted that she felt she deserved punishment. It wasn't enough that I was angry and distant. She needed to face the consequences. She listened to every insult, every harsh word from people who called to berate her. Even my relatives had disowned her, but she accepted it all if it meant she had a chance to fix things with me. I didn't know what to say. Emily pointed out that most unfaithful people try to hide their affairs as a form of denial, but Diana had done the opposite. She had owned up to her mistake, which was something I should at least acknowledge. I asked Diana what would have happened if I had never found out. She hesitated, then admitted that Bird Brain had become aggressive, pressuring her to either leave me or let him tell me the truth himself. He had even hinted at doing something to me, which scared her. I scoffed. So, me finding out was the best thing that could have happened? Diana nodded. Yes. It made me realize how messed up everything was. I told her I knew Bird Brain was in love with her, and that was why he hated me. He wanted me out of the picture because as long as I was there, Diana would never be his. Emily then asked me a pointed question. If Diana were truly in love with Bird Brain, why is she asking for marriage counseling? Why is she fighting so hard to save this marriage instead of rushing toward divorce? I couldn't answer right away. I knew Diana wasn't staying for financial security. She had a good job and could easily find another one. She wasn't homeless or abandoned by her family. After a long pause, I finally said, let's say, for argument's sake, that we reconcile and live together again. Then what? I'll doubt everything she says. Every time she's out of my sight, I'll suspect her. It'll be torture for me. Diana, looking at me earnestly, said, I know it'll be hard, but I'll never give you a reason to doubt me again. I shot back, not now maybe, but what about in 2 years? When the dust settles and I start trusting you again? What happens when another man catches your eye? Diana suddenly kneeled in front of me, locking eyes with mine. I will never hurt you again. The two most devastating moments of my life were receiving the divorce papers and getting the call that you might be seriously injured. If you give me another chance, I will always remember those moments when I thought I'd lost you. I will devote my life to making us happy. I had no words left. As the session ended and I went home, I checked Diana's phone. I noticed that Bird Brain was still blocked, so I unblocked him, and a flood of messages came in. Babe, are you okay? Babe, call me. Babe, I'll come to your house unless you call me first. Babe, where are you? Feeling uneasy, I downloaded an app to recover deleted messages. I managed to retrieve most of the recent ones, though the older ones were harder to restore. I expected to find Diana speaking disrespectfully about me, but surprisingly, she avoided mentioning me whenever possible. I did find some sexting, but knowing Diana, it didn't seem like she enjoyed it. Bird Brain used crude language, words Diana has always hated. He called her babe and other ridiculous pet names. ones I never even dared to use during our honeymoon phase. His messages were full of I love yous, but I didn't find a single one from Diana in return. For a brief moment, I felt relief, then immediately scolded myself. I shouldn't feel relieved. Just as Diana had told me, Birdbrain often mocked me in their conversations. He called me fatty, a pathetic loser, and even a little girl. Each time he mentioned me, Diana would simply reply, I don't want to talk about my husband. In the most recent messages, I could tell that whenever Diana didn't play along, Birdbrain got angry. He even threatened to come to my workplace and tell me everything, while Diana begged him not to. Of course, it was just a bluff. He didn't even know where I worked. I kept digging and saw that the night before D-Day, Diana hadn't messaged him at all. There were no calls either. Instead, she had been texting in a group chat with 2 other girls. Their messages were hilarious, and a few comments even made me chuckle. But by the next day, Diana had been kicked out of the group. The next counseling session focused on our past. Emily asked how Diana and I met. It was back in university. We were both in the library, doing homework, when Diana asked to borrow the last available copy of a book. She had to leave early, but I also needed the book for work. We agreed to photocopy it together. Though we were in different programs, we had the same professor, so our assignments were identical. We started chatting in line and hit it off immediately. I noticed how beautiful, intelligent, and kind she was. Diana, on the other hand, just thought I was a nice guy. After we split the book in copies, she had to return it to me, which gave us another chance to talk. That night, I was late for work, but I didn't care. It was worth it. We stayed friendly for a while until I finally asked her out. She turned me down. After that, I kept my distance, only greeting her in passing. But a week later, out of nowhere, she invited me out. I said yes instantly, and we started dating. Emily then asked what made us fall in love. For me, it was the time I took Diana to a Japanese restaurant for the first time. She struggled with the chopsticks until, finally, she gave up, stabbed a piece of meat with one, and said, screw this. It caught me off guard. I had never heard her curse before. I laughed so hard that, in the moment, I blurted out I love you. Diana's moment took longer. She said it was during a trip we took together. She knew it would be the first time we'd be intimate, but at the last minute, she got cold feet. She worried it would disappoint her father, and she was scared. That night, she cried and apologized. I reassured her that I wasn't mad, that I wanted her to feel safe and comfortable with me. We cuddled and fell asleep. That was when she realized she did feel safe with me. That was the first time she told me I love you. For the first time in a while, I didn't feel angry or resentful during the session. Instead, I enjoyed reminiscing about the past. Later, I gave Diana her phone back. I told her that I believed her. She wasn't in love with Birdbrain. She took her phone, smiled at me, and left without saying a word. She was really respecting my no-contact request. That Sunday, my cousin Elaine threw a Halloween party at a bar and invited me. No costumes were required, so I cleaned up and went alone. Elaine was one of the many people who had received Diana's confession. She told me she had the perfect person to introduce me to, a very attractive woman in her late 20s, Rachel. I greeted Rachel, but then I saw it, that look. A look I've seen too many times before. A look of disgust and disappointment, as if I had a giant booger dripping from my nose. Normally, I wouldn't care. I had a beautiful wife. But at that moment, I was eager to see if I had changed. If I had improved. Apparently not. Not in the 18 years since I met Diana. Diana never gave me that look. She always seemed happy to see me. That's why I fell for her so fast. Immediately, my defense mechanisms kicked in, and I wanted to keep my distance from Rachel. But Elaine sat us together in a booth, so I tried, very clumsily, to make conversation. Rachel barely responded. Instead, she pulled out her phone and started texting. A few minutes later, another guy approached her. Oh, there you are. I didn't know you were coming. Want to dance? She glanced at me and said, you don't mind, right? I forced a smile. Go and have fun. I watched them disappear into the crowd, my mind racing. So, he didn't know she was here? But somehow, he was already looking for her? I bet she texted him. Come save me from this creep. I sighed and went to look for Elaine. It took me a few minutes to find her. As I approached, I overheard Elaine talking to Rachel before they noticed me. I distinctly heard her say, you said he's a catch, before Elaine saw me. The moment she did, they immediately fell silent. I simply said, I'm not feeling well. I'm going home. I apologized to Rachel for not meeting her expectations. She just shrugged, while Elaine shot daggers at me with her eyes. When I got home, I initially thought Elaine was just a materialistic snob, but something about the situation triggered old, painful memories from my youth. I couldn't stop them from resurfacing. The realization hit me. I was going to be alone from now on. No wife, no children. A part of me accepted that I was simply an unattractive man, and at almost 45, Rebuilding a relationship would be incredibly difficult. I felt like a total failure. Then, another anxiety attack struck. My therapist had given me strategies to cope, so I crawled under my sheets, completely covering myself. I lay there, crying, trembling, and sobbing until exhaustion took over. When I woke up early in the morning, my pillow was damp with tears and sweat. My head throbbed, and I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor for what felt like an hour, lost in my thoughts, until my alarm went off. But I couldn't bring myself to move. I skipped the gym, sat under the running shower, and let myself break down again. At work, a close colleague, the same one who had lent me his car, noticed how quiet and sluggish I was. He looked at me with concern and said, "You look really down." That's when I finally admitted to myself. Depression had set in. The next day, I received a text from Elaine apologizing for her friend's behavior. I ignored it. I tried to push myself to go to the gym, but it felt like all my energy had drained away. I barely made it through the session before giving up and going home. A few days later, I took my godchildren trick-or-treating with my sister-in-law in Mexico, where we celebrate on November 1st and 2nd. For a brief moment, I felt a little lighter, but as soon as I got home, the weight returned. 3 days after Elaine's party, I attended what was supposed to be my final session with Diana and Emily. I tried to put on a brave face, but I failed miserably. It took Diana only a few minutes to notice something was off. "Are you okay?" she asked. I forced a smile. "I'm fine," I lied. But she didn't buy it. She studied my face and then turned to Emily. "Can we reschedule? Daniel isn't well." I protested, but Diana didn't budge. "That's a lie," she said firmly. "I can tell you're not fine." Emily looked at me with concern. "What are you feeling?" I hesitated. I didn't want to seem weak, especially in front of Diana. But then she softly said, "Are you sad?" I looked at her, surprised. She moved closer, gently took my hand, and asked again, "What's wrong?" For the first time in a long time, I didn't pull away. Her big, warm brown eyes seemed to look right through me, and to my shame, I broke. My shoulders sagged, and I put my elbows on my knees as silent tears fell. Diana didn't hesitate. She placed a comforting hand on my back, offering me a moment of warmth in the midst of my darkness. I took a deep breath, wiped my face, and excused myself to the restroom. When I returned, I noticed Diana's own eyes were teary. Emily, who had been watching quietly, finally spoke. "Do you want to tell us what's on your mind?" Before I could answer, Diana, her voice trembling, whispered, "It's my fault." I shook my head. "No," I admitted. "It's not because of you. It's my own insecurities." She wiped her face and looked at me intently. Then, she cupped my face in her hands, bringing it close to hers. "Nose to nose," she said. "Daniel, please. I really hate when you say you're unattractive." She wasn't wrong. I'd expressed that insecurity to her before, especially during the rough patches when I felt like I was losing her. She started listing the things she liked about me, and then, with a mischievous smile, she added, "When I undressed you at the hospital and saw you in just your underwear, the nurses and I thought." I couldn't help but chuckle. For the first time in days, I actually felt lighter. "You're in better shape than I remember," she continued. It was true. I had lost another 4 kilograms since all this drama began. Unfortunately, some of it was muscle, thanks to my lack of sleep and appetite. I glanced at Emily, who had remained silent, just watching us. Finally, she spoke. "You two could still build something new together. Your previous marriage is over, but a new concept, a fresh start, could work for both of you. That's my advice. Take it if you want." Diana immediately loved the idea. I hesitated. "I'm not sure," I said. "I'll have to discuss it with my lawyer and therapist." For the rest of the session, we talked about our lives apart. I was surprised to learn Diana had taken a job at a different company, but was still in therapy. I told them I had been focusing on learning how to cook and working on my mental health. Emily asked us about the pros and cons of being separated. I admitted that staying busy helped me cope, though I didn't mention how much I missed my wife sometimes. But Diana did. "I hate being alone," she confessed. "I hate not being in my home with my husband, whom I love dearly." She squeezed my hand. That's when I realized. We had been holding hands the entire time. For the first time in a long while, her touch didn't feel like an anchor pulling me into the past. It felt like a glimmer of light breaking through my darkness. The session ended, and Emily signed the documents from our attorneys. As Diana and I walked out together, I walked her to her car. Still unsure of my feelings, I hesitated as she turned to me. "So, is the no-contact request over?" she asked. "I guess so," I answered. Then, after a moment, she said, "Would you have dinner with me for your birthday? Mid-November?" I must have hesitated, because she quickly added, "Just dinner. Just talking. Like the good old days." After a pause, I agreed. But I set my boundaries. No kissing. No touching. She nodded. We settled on a date. 2 weeks later, the day before my birthday. I had 2 weeks before my date with Diana. First, I met with my attorney, who strongly advised against it, insisting that I should only meet her if both attorneys were present. He warned me about the risks. What if she recorded our conversation and used it as evidence of reconciliation? I told him that I wasn't even sure what I wanted yet, and this meeting was my way of figuring that out. He shrugged and said I wouldn't be the first to have second thoughts. But if I was still set on divorce, I needed to avoid any discussions about reconciliation and refrain from showing affection. I assured him I understood. During the first week, I had appointments with both my therapist and my psychiatrist. My therapist suggested adopting a pet to help with my depression. I loved the idea. Animals have always seemed to like me. So, I went to a shelter and adopted a joyful, intelligent mixed-breed dog named Samantha. She was medium-sized and full of life. I went a little overboard buying things for her. Tons of toys, a leash, a collar with her name, and a warm bed. She truly helped lift my spirits, and my godchildren adored her. Meanwhile, my psychiatrist adjusted my medication, doubling my dose of antidepressants and prescribing something to help with compulsive thoughts. Everyone, my parents, my therapist, and my psychiatrist, gave me the same advice: do whatever makes me happy. But that was the problem. I didn't know what would make me happy. I needed something, or someone, to jolt me back to reality. Surprisingly, that someone turned out to be the last person I expected. I had been skipping my last 3 kickboxing classes since Elaine's Halloween party, and my coach, Abraham, was not happy. He confronted me in the locker room, initially to scold me, but when he noticed I was down, he asked if I was okay. I admitted that I wasn't. I started opening up about my depression, and he shared that his son was struggling with the same thing. He invited me out for beers, and at the bar, I told him everything about Diana, about bird brain, about how I was feeling. His reaction? Absolute disgust. He echoed everything you all have told me before. But then, he cut through all the emotions and asked me directly, "What do you want?" I hesitated, unsure of what to say. He pushed me. "I don't care about feelings. Tell me what you want." I opened my mouth but couldn't answer. He sighed, clearly exasperated, and told me, "You really need to man up." Then, he told me to come to the gym early the next day. He paid for the drinks and added, "You're going to be born again." The next day, I arrived an hour early. Abraham was waiting for me with sparring gear. I had never sparred before. I mostly trained with the sandbag. He told me to punch him. I threw a punch, and he almost laughed. "That's it," he scoffed. I felt my face heat up. There were others watching, and I was the oldest one there. I tried again, but he easily blocked me and shoved me backward. I tripped and fell on my butt. "Your determination is weak," he said. He helped me up, then repeated, "Man up." I heard someone chuckle, and that was it. I felt a spark of anger. I took it more seriously, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't land a single hit. I knew he was going easy on me. I was exhausted, but he told me to come back the next day and try again. "You're not giving it your all. Show yourself what you can do." That sentence stuck with me all day. At our next session, Abraham had some of the guys record our sparring on my phone. Again, I couldn't land a single hit. Later, we watched the video, and he critiqued my performance. I was slow, clumsy, and weak. While I managed to block some of his blows, my reactions were panicked. Watching myself was embarrassing. "You need to man up," he repeated. "Do whatever it takes to hit me at least once." That's when I admitted to myself that I had never given kickboxing my full effort. Determined to change that, I started studying my movements on the video, researching techniques online, and adding an extra hour of training at night. I cleared space in my study for shadow sparring. I became obsessed with proving my determination, and in the process, I completely forgot about Diana and our upcoming meeting. By the 5th session, I started predicting some of his movements, but I was still too slow. More and more people began watching, and I later found out there was a bet going on. Then, on the 7th day, the impossible happened. I saw his fist moving toward my chest, and something in me just clicked. In that split second, my body reacted with speed and precision. I landed a solid punch to his ribs. For a brief moment, I felt victorious. Then, something black flashed before my eyes. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground, my face against the floor, and Abraham was shouting, "Give him some room." Dizzy and bleeding from my nose, I turned onto my back and saw everyone crowded around me. Abraham knelt beside me, apologetic. "You did it, man." "Sorry, it was a reflex." The kid who had been recording us showed me the video. I had punched Abraham, and in pure instinct, he had immediately countered, knocking me out for 5 seconds. It had taken me a whole week to land a single hit on him. But as I sat up, still dazed, I looked around at the cheering faces, at Abraham's proud smile, and something in me shifted. I joined the others in shouting, "Hell yeah!" The energy was electric. People patted my back as I got to my feet, grinning through the pain. Abraham looked me straight in the eye. I'll ask you again, what do you want? This time, I didn't hesitate. I yelled, I want to be stronger. I want to be the best version of myself. And your wife? He asked. I felt my expression harden. She betrayed me. She doesn't deserve me. Abraham grinned and raised my hand like I had won a championship fight. The entire gym erupted in cheers. I knew it was just one punch. But Abraham knew that this victory, this moment, meant more to me than any therapy, medication, or advice ever could. Since then, my confusion, sadness, and doubts have completely disappeared. Welcome to the final stage of acceptance. In the days that followed, I threw myself into my training and made a series of decisions that the old me would have hesitated over or sought Diana's opinion on. I decided to change my look, upgrade my car, and finally do things I had avoided out of fear, like learning to dance or play a musical instrument. I even planned to get my first tattoo. The day before our scheduled meetup, Diana texted me. I told her the time and place, and she simply replied, "Don't be late." I felt more confident than ever. We met at her favorite restaurant for lunch. As always, she was breathtaking, while I kept it simple: jacket, t-shirt, jeans, and hikers. She exuded confidence, but I just smirked and started recording with my phone. The conversation was amicable, and my emotions were under control. Unlike our last encounter, I felt no anger or resentment. It was like catching up with an old friend, purely platonic, at least from my side. She asked about my past struggles, and I told her I was feeling much better now, which genuinely surprised her. She wanted to know what triggered my insecurities, so I explained the whole Rachel drama. Just like my cousin Elaine, Diana was furious when she heard about it. She then admitted that she would never be ready to see me with someone else. I responded by telling her that I was ending a messy relationship with my crazy wife, referring to Diana in the past tense. She caught the meaning immediately and smirked, noting that it was a clever suggestion from one of my champions. Then she added, "She sounds like a bitch. You should get away from her." We both laughed. God, how I missed conversations like this, like before Birdbrain. We could talk for hours. Diana mentioned that one of my coworkers had asked her out. I laughed, knowing exactly who it was. I've seen that guy secretly staring at attractive women before. It didn't surprise me. She turned him down, and he apparently got mad about it. I also asked about Isabel and what her issue was with me. Diana said she wasn't sure, but had a theory. Isabel disliked my ethnicity and couldn't stand the fact that I was more educated and held a higher position than her. She also discovered that Isabel was dating two guys at the same time, whatever that meant for her. We moved on to talking about Birdbrain. Apparently, he had called Diana from a different number, begging her to run away with him. She swore she didn't say a word, just listened before hanging up. Eventually, he left for another state. I made some cutting remarks about him, which Diana wholeheartedly agreed with. She was stunned at how much of a liar he was and called him a loser. Then, she brought up the time Birdbrain and I met. She had read about it in my post and wanted to hear about it firsthand. So, I told her exactly what I had said and how I had said it. Her eyes widened, and she even wet her lips. "That gave me goosebumps," she admitted. "I've never seen you that aggressive before." Then, with a playful smirk, she added, "I liked it." Suddenly, she got all flirty and asked if I wanted to go stuffing the muffin, our old euphemism for being intimate. This was the moment I had been waiting for. As Diana leaned in closer, about to kiss me, I didn't even have time to think, but I felt it again. The anger, the resentment. My body reacted instinctively, and I pulled away, my expression turning cold. "No," I said firmly. She immediately apologized, but I just smiled and told her we should leave. It was getting late, and I needed to walk Sammy. I paid for the meal. Since she hadn't brought her car, she asked me to drive her home. I suspected she had assumed we would be spending the night together. When we arrived at my apartment, we could hear Samantha whining and scratching at the door. Just before I stepped inside, Diana turned serious. "Daniel, please, will you ever forgive your wife?" "I already have." "Then why won't you take her back?" "Because I will never forget what she did. And I can't trust her." She looked sad for a moment, but then asked, "What about me? Would you take me instead?" I smiled. "What are you talking about? We're friends." She looked offended. "Are you friend-zoning me?" "I guess so," I said with a shrug, playfully punching her shoulder. I expected her to be more upset, but instead, her eyes sparkled with a big smile. "You finally touched me." That caught me off guard. Since D-Day, I hadn't voluntarily touched her. She took a step forward. "Can I hug you?" "Sure." She practically jumped into my arms. It felt strangely familiar, her body fitting perfectly against mine, her perfume filling my senses, her long wavy hair tickling my nose. I hugged her back. "Let's get back together," she pleaded. I gently pulled away and met her gaze. "No, Diana, we're getting divorced." She stared at me, almost as if she thought I was joking. But I wasn't. Diana didn't take it well. She was convinced we would reconcile, and made a scene in front of my apartment. I tried to calm her down, but she protested and yelled, clinging to me as if I were about to vanish. Through tears, she begged, promising she had changed and would do anything to make me happy. I felt sad for her. I don't hate Diana. She was my best and only friend for so long, and we share amazing memories. But she made a terrible mistake, and as a result, I fell out of love. A nosy neighbor peeked out from his apartment, so I guided Diana inside. Sammy was curious about her, and since I didn't have any tea to offer, I warmed some soy milk while Diana sobbed and petted Sammy. Once she had calmed down a bit, I sat across from her. Then she asked, "Do you still love me?" I told her that I cared about her as a good friend, as I always had, but not as a partner, not anymore. She yelled, "Why not?" "I've changed." I explained that I felt different now. I had finished mourning our marriage. That made her angry. She accused me of being cruel, but I told her I was simply being realistic. What I said in my messages was the truth. I can never trust her again. I will never forget the look on her face when I caught her on D-Day. That moment shattered my trust and destroyed my love for her. She slammed the table, called herself an idiot, and cursed her own foolishness. She admitted that she never truly appreciated what she had until she lost it. She took me for granted. Then she made desperate proposals, suggesting a period of reconciliation, an open marriage, but only on my side, or even a friends with benefits arrangement. I told her she was being unreasonable. She asked, "What do you want from me?" I answered, "I want you to be happy with whoever you choose, and I will move on and be happy on my own." Then she asked if there was another woman in my life. I told her, "Not yet, but someday." She buried her face in her hands. Sammy, sensing her distress, placed a paw on her leg. I realized it was time for Sammy's nightly walk. Around 10 p.m. Diana came with me, walking silently by my side. At the dog park, I took off Sammy's leash, and she ran, sniffing and rolling in the dry grass, one of her favorite things. Diana sat next to me and finally spoke. "I'll never find love again." I reassured her, "Yes, you will. There are plenty of fish in the sea." She told me that at her new job, 2 co-workers had already asked her out, both of whom were married. I asked if she had reported them. She said HR wouldn't take action because their invitations were framed as innocent, friendly outings. But she knew their real intentions. Both men had their eyes glued to her chest. So, to deter them, she placed a photo of us together on display at her desk, hoping it would work as a deterrent. I laughed. She didn't. She admitted she seriously believes she'll be alone from now on, only attracting the wrong kind of men. She can't have children, and she lost the love of her life. Then she asked if I would ever marry again. I told her, I don't think so. I may never believe in marriage again. I didn't mention that I do still want to have children someday. Later, I sent an audio recording of our conversation to my lawyer. He reviewed it and told me there was nothing in it that suggested reconciliation, just pointless chit-chat. It wouldn't hold up as evidence in court. He also pointed out that referring to Diana in the third person made it sound like I wasn't speaking directly to her, which was a smart move. On my birthday, most of my extended family texted or called to check in. I spent the day at my parents' house. My brother and his wife were already there, and then Diana arrived with my in-laws. We all played games, ate, and enjoyed an incredible cake my mom made. She's the best cook ever. There was no drama. My mother-in-law was having a good day. She was a little confused, but she still loves watching the twins play, even though she forgets they are her grandchildren. It was a truly great day. When we cut the cake, I realized I had everything I wanted. My godkids are still in my life. I forgave Diana. My depression is almost gone. Since then, a lot has happened. In mid-December, I went on a date with a single mother who tried to convince me to adopt her incredibly annoying child. That was quite the ride. If there's a place where I can post about disastrous dates, I'd have a lot to share. One of my tenants tried to make me her sugar daddy. I got my first tattoo, an Aztec eagle warrior on my shoulder. I'm proud of my heritage and ethnicity, and if anyone has a problem with my appearance, I'll just shrug and keep being myself. I'm a decent, hardworking person. In my culture, Aztec eagle warriors wore helmets made from the heads of royal eagles. Royal eagles symbolize freedom, honesty, and strength in my country. At the end of December, Diana quit her job. One of the co-workers harassing her turned out to be a big shot at the company, and HR gaslighted her instead of taking action. So, the smartest move was to leave. I spent Christmas with the twins and Diana's family. She's slowly accepting that we're over, though she's still overly friendly with me. In January, I decided to give Tinder a try. One of the guys from kickboxing helped me set up my profile. Although I didn't get many likes, I did match with a junior high teacher. She's witty and incredibly funny, and we started dating. Unfortunately, I know it won't last. She doesn't want children, she's a gamer, and she wants me to quit kickboxing because she thinks it's too violent. I began spending more time at my parents' house, learning how to cook. Turns out, I really enjoy it. Just last weekend, I baked bread for the first time. It didn't look great, but it tasted amazing. I plan to practice more so I can bake a cake for my godchildren's birthdays in March. I had a meeting with my attorney, and he mentioned that Birdbrain's lawsuit had progressed. That reminded me that I still wanted to have a chat with Ethan. Long story short, I met with Ethan, and he told me that Birdbrain was fired the very Monday after our meeting. Apparently, he had also been living illegally at Ethan's father's house. Since Birdbrain had been an employee for years, Ethan filed a civil suit for trespassing. That means Birdbrain is now legally prohibited from being near Ethan or any of his properties for the next 5 years. If he violates the order, the police will get involved. I asked if Diana would also be facing legal trouble, but Ethan said Birdbrain confessed that she had no knowledge of the situation. She was only at the house to exercise under his guidance, using the repaired equipment. Ethan also mentioned that he had assumed Diana and I were still together, so he felt he owed me this bit of justice. Ethan was surprisingly friendly and understanding. He admitted that he had cheated in his youth and, because of that, has zero tolerance for infidelity now. Before I left, he told me, "You're going to love this," and pulled out his phone. He showed me a silent video taken from one of his gym's security cameras. At first, I didn't recognize the setting. It was the cafeteria. The tables were mostly empty, except for one where a man was sitting with his back to the camera. Then, a massive figure entered the frame, and I immediately recognized Elliot. Elliot walked up to the man and placed a hand on his shoulder. A moment later, the man, Birdbrain, covered his face with his hands. They exchanged a few words before both walked out of the frame. But in that brief moment, the camera caught Birdbrain's face. Red eyes, tear-streaked cheeks, pure devastation. Ethan and I both burst out laughing. I jokingly told him, "I'm making this my screensaver." The video was recorded the day before Birdbrain was fired. My divorce was finalized on February 17th. Shortly after, Diana texted me, saying, "I know this isn't the end for us." A few days later, my sister-in-law told me Diana had fallen into depression. She begged me to talk to her because, apparently, I'm the only one she listens to. Diana had stopped working, lost a lot of weight, and was sleeping most of the day. She refused therapy until I convinced her to go. She wants me to stay in touch more often, but I had to be honest with her. That's exactly what's keeping her stuck. She needs to let me go. That's it. I finally feel like I'm on the right path. I'm studying hard for a promotion that will allow me to travel. I'm still making great progress at the gym, and while I haven't sparred with Abraham again, some of the guys have asked me to help them train. Most importantly, I got what I wanted. I maintained an amicable relationship with my ex, and I didn't lose my in-laws. I still see them as family. My godchildren love me, and I love them as if they were my own. The thought of losing them was unbearable, but they kept me going. I went through the dark tunnel, faced every stage of grief, and came out on the other side. In my country, godparents are considered the children's second parents, responsible for them if anything happens to their mom and dad. To anyone mourning the end of a marriage, don't let bitterness consume you. There is light at the end of this. It takes time and effort, but one day, you'll be okay again. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.